already deployed, you want to get a hacker's eye view, what the bad guy will see when they're looking at the website, dynamic analysis is for. So they're not supposed to be a replacement for each other. I know they're supposed to be complementary in the strict sense of the word, but they do measure very different things, and they're just tools.
Okay. That leaves us with more like network tools. Again, web application firewall is something that plenty of companies deploy. Actually, I've read a research paper from you guys a couple months ago that was talking about 40% deployment rate. It's not really that easy in a cloud environment to deploy web application firewalls, except, well, maybe there might be one of the other cloud providers that includes that or starting to include that. But in the typical scenarios, Amazon, Rackspace, they don't really have these tools right now.
I'm really not up to speed on their WAF deployments on those particular guys, but most of the time I'm exposed to either Mod Security, it's a software-based application firewall that runs on Apache, obviously, or the hardware-based ones. Mm-hmm. The ones that come in a pizza box, you have real difficult times putting them in the cloud somewhere.
Putting them in the cloud, yeah. So you have to go back and look what are the software alternatives that are available. So how good is that stuff? How much time should I spend on that, or is that time better spent on fixing the application? Why am I fixing it in a firewall?
It's whose time and whose money. I don't know if you're going to have your developer tuning your web application firewall. That would probably be a poor use of their time, but an IT security person might. They'd probably be better suited for that. So if you're looking at it this way, these are just choices, they're options. It's no one right way. You find a vuln in your website, you work with the development group and go, how long is this going to take us to fix? 6 weeks, 9 months, never. Can we virtual patch in the next day or two? Would that be enough? Yeah, it might be for some organizations. Let's give that a shot. If we're going to fix it in a week and we can roll that virtual patch back up, great, that might be good for them. Sometimes it's a web application firewall just for a temporary virtual patch. Sometimes it's a long-term solution that just really depends on the organization. No one right way.
Okay, so that sounds like they can really be complementary in the deployment. Web application 5 could be a very quick solution, while it sounds like web application take a long time to solve. You're talking 6 weeks, 9 months.
Depends on the environment, depends on the bug. We've seen fast turnaround times in cross-site scripting and SQL injection bugs in the matter of 8 hours from some of our customers, like really fast. Other ones, weeks, months on the average.
Okay. So some IDS vendors are also offering kind of web application firewall functionality. Is that do you see like a convergence there between what they do and what the web application firewalls do?
It's going to blur and get confusing. The IDS vendors will say they have WAF-like features to block SQL injection and cross-site scripting. Mm-hmm. True, they probably could in some occasions.
I mean, they look at the same stuff, basically.
How comprehensive is it? That'll be a question. I don't know. When we look at websites, it's very much the attacker's eye view. Is the IDS going to be capable of stopping us? We'll see.
So do you think it's fair to say that more mature cloud providers will add web application functionality to their services, that you can just check it off and get it?
Customers yell loud enough? Absolutely. They'll either do it themselves or go through a partner or something like that. Yeah.
Which is basically what Hoff was talking about earlier, if you guys were here. It's really the customers that have to say, we want this stuff. Without this, we are not going to deploy, and we'll probably have to pay for it in some way or another, right?
Security isn't free, so, I mean, bottom line.
Okay. Most of these topics are addressed in here, so I think can close down and see if there's any questions from the audience.
You guys have questions? Come on, there's got to be at least one question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. What's your general opinion of the effectiveness of web application firewalls?
On which vuln style? Which vuln? It's kind of hard to generalize. So what's the effectiveness of web application firewalls? It will depend on the vulnerability in question. They have different success rates on different vulnerabilities. To kind of give you two examples, I guess. Session-based handling, if they'll encrypt the cookie on the fly back and forth, cookie-based twiddling to jump into other people's sessions gets pretty challenging when they're encrypting all the cookies on the fly. In the case of cross-site scripting and SQL injection, they can be really powerful, because they'll do whitelist, sometimes blacklist, sometimes both in combinations. But you throw encoding at it, and you can slide right by. It just really depends on the actual implementation. Are they perfect? Not by a long shot. Are they getting better? Yeah, we see it. We're trying, from White Hat's perspective, we don't get religious on the debate to WAF or to not WAF. Our customer said we need an option other than to just fixing the code, and we said, all right. So when we work on ways to bypass WAFs, we share our research back out with the WAF vendors, and hopefully they get better over time. So hopefully that answers your question.
So maybe just to address that with the session handling. So web application firewalls, they change content. They can actually improve your session handling, like an add-on. I've seen them offer additional authentication and things like that, CSIF protections, adding additional fields to the field. So it's not really only blocking things, it's also modifying content. And you're saying that that can actually work pretty well?
They add security, and they can add security in both ends of the transaction, on security on the request coming in and also on the response going out. They can, yeah. You're going to get into it. You're going to get out of it what you put into it, and they're not a set and forget kind of thing. If anybody markets you otherwise, red sirens.
So it sounds it's like a division of labor things. If you have some resources on the IT department, they could help out a little bit with web security there to kind of offload the developers that are working on making productive applications.
Web security is very challenging. I think it's not a technology issue we're dealing with. It's a scale issue. Where do we get the people? How do we train the developers? If we're going to train developers, where are the trainers? Right? So,
I just want to make a generalized comment. This is what I firmly believe the problem with any type of application security, especially web application security, is it's got to be management driven. So that exact aspect is what focuses on enforcing the developers to develop security, using tools in that environment to test their software before it's released. Management enforces configuration management, not allowing websites that have not been tested to be put into a production environment. And that's what it's really all about. Management has got to take the lead on it, and that's where the money comes from. So,
I guess then the business question is that we always try to figure out a way to justify it is, why should the business care? Why should they spend? And I guess the best answer we got is either compliance, you have to, or that you might get hacked and we scare you. Is there any other way to do it?
So when we talk about education, shouldn't like the universities provide the educated developers that know security? Anybody here from the university or from the educational space, is that being taught, secure programming?
I'm even seeing a little bit of my current curriculum, but I think the issue is not your business management is not being taught, and that's where the real issue is. If business management, the actual managers are not taught the importance of application and web security, then they influence the money, and that's, you got to chase the money on security, and that's the real problem. So it's great, yeah, we definitely want to teach developers in schools, but if management doesn't enforce the policies and practices, it's all for naught.
This is maybe where we bring up the compliance thing again. If you don't do
Absolutely.
this, then you're not compliant, and if we get hacked, you go to jail.
Well, absolutely, and that's the one thing that I've seen it where it's turned around is, at least with FISMA, the whole accreditation concept. And if you hold management responsible, they sign for that application. That needs to be brought out back into business and industry.
But very much agreeing, having made a run to try and bring SB 800 to where it's not required, it's a beast. There needs to be something that's not quite as lightweight as the sand train. But golly, is there a way to use the compliance straight? Does management understand that? Compliant or not compliant? And have a ratcheted set of things management can be held out. It's not a one-size-fits-all, clearly.
Right.
Well, I wanted to point out that there's also sort of a philosophical problem, and that is that as a developer, you're incented to get your product out, rush to market. The company wants to make money, they want to get their widget out on the web, whatever. So you might take shortcuts, may or may not. It's really up to developer discretion. So you get incented to perform and to get it out there and to get it out there fast. So then you get a bonus because you're the star performer. You're not incented to get it out there as a star performer without incident. So then, if and when the application gets hacked or broken, then you spend X number of times fixing it, and then you're incented again for fixing code that you already pushed out in a wonky way. So I mean, from my perspective, it's like really corporations really through a shift and say, you're going to get a bonus, or you're going to be incented to push code out that's exceptional and without incident. Like how many, think of like OSHA. How long have we gone through, days without incident on site? Something like that. But it's just, the system's completely broken.
Well, you got to look at it a little bit different. CEO is going to say, what's my cost if I get hacked? Heartland, TJ Maxx, Fidelity, and recently AT&T. There was no perceived cost in reduction in sales. There was no cost in terms of fixing the breach that was significant except for PCI cost. That's the only cost structure that the CEO looked at. So he's not going to tell your developers, he's going to send it to produce securities. He's looking at, okay, so it cost me $100 million, but I made a couple of billion.
And in the case of DJS, it was interesting, and look back at their financial statement here. They had record earnings, record stock growth, record store restore sales, record new stores open that year. It's like, okay, the message is, hack the hell out of me and my costs go up.
Maybe not that, but I agree, at the end of the day, it's a business decision.
Yeah.
That whether they made an informed business decision to proceed, or just worked out that way, I don't know. But is it, stepping outside the role of a security guy, is it the wrong decision? From a cost perspective, clearly not. You're very reasonable.
Yeah.
So,
But
the dog will learn the easiest behaviors with like the correction.
to go back to the previous presenter, the website guy, in the whole kind of real-time sort of, misinformation becoming information, it's like no major corporation, Fortune 500, wants their name on the top of one of these things that's brand everything. It simply says, credit card company X is crap because they were hacked.
It's just tough to quantify in that way. We need X dollars for a security program, so we don't make the New York Times and suffer brand damage. It's a really difficult thing to quantify.
Yeah, it's a soft number.
Yeah.
You get that from the executive, and then they turn around and tell the developers, oh, by the way, this new application's got to be out tomorrow.
I'm with you.
That he's getting, I don't want my name in the paper, but that application's got to be out tomorrow. Developers sitting there going, okay, what requirements are not going to go? Where does security fall in requirements? It doesn't even come close to cutoff line. I mean, it's so far down in the cutoff that, functionality rules. This is business.
There's a gentleman back there.
Where I agree with everything that's being said, one of the things we suffer from, and was mentioned before, is academia. When we get developers out of whatever university they came from, there's really none of them that teach security. I mean, I've gone to the universities as a part of industrial committees to recommend what they should teach, talk to them about secure computing, ask the